welcome everyone to Deep Dive Wednesdays, the second one of this academic year. The next one is going to be on Wednesday, the 4th of December, because of half term at the end of October and the beginning of November. So I thought today we should be focusing on this crucial theme of planning effective lessons. I'm Esam, so I'm very excited to help you learn how we can use some of the generators within TeacherMatic to help you better prepare for lesson observations. And in lesson observations, especially in FE, typically start in October of this year. And this, I guess, allows some of the lecturers to settle into their teaching before observations commence. So I'd like to start with a powerful saying that says, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Given the limited time frame of this deep dive, half an hour, and then we're going to open it up for a Q&A, it's simply impossible to cover every aspect and detail related to this topic, a very, very important topic. So with that in mind, let's dive into the key topics that will make the most impact within our limited time. So obviously, lesson observations are very, very stressful. And, you know, we're all in teaching. I used to be a lecturer for over 20 years, and it's an incredibly rewarding profession. But it comes with a lot of significant stress that it can impact our mental health, from managing, you know, large workloads to meeting the diverse needs of our learners, all while facing the pressure of lesson observations and all the other administrative demands. So the pressure of being constantly evaluated through lesson observations can contribute to a lot of stress, as you can imagine. A UCU survey found that 50% of lecturers felt that a poor observation result can jeopardize their future promotional prospects, of course, adding to their anxiety. So I'm not going to go into details about everything, but, you know, these are some of the stress factors and the mental health implications that come with, you know, lesson observations. So I've got some tips. This is not an exhaustive list, of course, but there are some tips in preparing for a successful observation. And I would say one of the most important, although it's not listed there, is for you to understand the criteria. You need to familiarize yourself with the criteria that is being used to evaluate your lesson. This is going to include planning, teaching methods, classroom management, assessment, and student outcomes. So these are some of the tips. I have highlighted the last one because I think all of them, as you know, teachers are quite self-explanatory. But I think the last one is something to explain. And what that is broader learning context. So Ofsted values lessons that develop students' cultural capital by exposing them to ideas, knowledge, and experiences beyond their immediate environment. So this could involve linking the lesson content to real-world examples, careers, or cross-curricular themes. So just keep that in mind. And it's always a good idea, of course, to relate it to real life, whatever you're doing anyway. So how can TeacherMatic help you? What I have to stress is that TeacherMatic should be seen as a strong first draft, offering a solid framework for teachers to build upon. However, it's not the final product. That's really important to stress. It's not the final product, as each teacher knows their students best and understands what works effectively in their classroom. So we encourage all teachers to bring their own creativity and insight, personalizing the content to ensure it resonates with their learners and meets their unique learning needs. So this balance of, you know, what TeacherMatic does, pre-generated content and teacher-led customization, is key to maximizing the platform's potential. All right, I think that's something so important to stress here. So the first one we're going to look at is the lesson plan generator. And the lesson plan generator is a fantastic tool that provides teachers with a strong foundational framework. So it makes it much easier and faster to get started with lesson planning. It significantly reduces the time and energy required for those initial steps, offering a solid starting point. Just remember, view it as a strong first draft, something that you need to build upon. So make sure that you use your own creativity and insight, along with the other generators, by the way, to personalize the lesson plan. So when I used to get observed, it would take me days and days to create my lesson plan and my resources. And what TeacherMatic should be doing is reducing that workload and reducing that time and energy to get you a big head start. But it's not the final product, okay? So with that being said, let's just jump into one of the generators, and that's what I'll do. So my recommendation here is that what you should do is get your unit specifications that you teach. So I used to teach the Unit 3 Social Media and Business. So what I would do is I would open up these unit specs, and because I know this unit very well, and I suspect most teachers will know their unit and will know the specifications, these bullet points, of course, are in BTEC, for example, are essential. So I would grab what I want to teach, and I know what I've just highlighted is part of P1, and that's definitely something I would teach. So I would actually copy and paste some of these bullet points into our lesson plan. So once you've done that, as you can see, I want to focus really on creating an image and a brand for social media websites. Then, of course, and I'm sure you're fully aware of what you should do. If it's a 90-minute lesson, I'll just change that to 90 minutes. You can, of course, embed numeracy and literacy and other skills, something really important. But we're going to even take this much further using Ask the Expert generator, and I'll show you how that works. So I'm just going to add numeracy and literacy for now, and then identify the learning needs. On average, 1 in 10 students is dyslexic. We'll have probably ADHD students. You might have students with an English as an additional language. You might even have a student with a hearing impairment. So identify those learning needs, and then you can choose which pedagogical model. And obviously, the most widely used is Bloom's taxonomy. Here is where you can embed this differentiation. So we can click on Remember, Understand, and then some of the higher end, and maybe Evaluate. So we'll focus on further education, and we'll click Generate. And what I'm going to sort of advise and give you a tip here is that first time round, the results might not meet your expectation. So what I would do, this looks okay to me. What I would do is I would create a folder structure on your computer. So for example, I've created a folder structure here with all the generators that I'm going to use for my lesson planning. So I've got a folder called lesson plans here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this because I think there's some really good aspects here. Just click Export as, Word document, Save as, and go into my folder that I've created and just put it in there. And I'll call this version 1, right? I'll go back and I'll click on Regenerate. And what I'm trying to do is see what it produces and then mix and match the best of both worlds. Right, so it's produced this, right? I'll save that also and put it in my folder. Now, as I said, this is not a final product, but just imagine we got the best of both worlds, and I'm going to open up this lesson plan. Now, it might need some formatting, so I'll just show you a little trick here. Let me move that there. This table needs, what we're going to do is just click on it here, go to table layout, and just go to auto fit contents. So we definitely, okay, welcome and introduction, absolutely fine, but we definitely want a starter, and this is where you're going to go and add your expertise and creativity here. So you're going to say a starter activity here. This could be a survey or a quiz. So resources, you might even say Microsoft Forms here. So this is where you are highly advised to go in there and amend it here. So at the end, I'm definitely going to have a Q&A session here. I might have a quiz. So this is just a starting point. But as you can see, what it's done, it's now identified some of that differentiation where we can target all the diverse learning needs. Some of them are really good. Normally, this is quite general, but we can even take this further. I think this is, this is more than adequate in terms of hearing impairments, dyslexia, and ADHD. And this is, this would tick the box, but we're not trying to tick the box. We're trying to really have an impact. So what I would advise here is that we're going to go to our Ask an Expert. So Ask an Expert is a fantastic generator. You really should take full advantage of this generator. And you can ask it instant advice on any topic. And my example today is we're going to show you how to give you really good advice about embedding numeracy and literacy in your lessons. And you can use it to explain complex concepts very easily. If you're not sure about a subject that you're teaching, go in there and ask the expert. This is something I believe that teachers should be using on a regular basis. So I'm going to zoom in so you can see what I've done here. Okay, so all I've done is I've said, you're a maths expert in teaching and learning. So why did I put fractions? And this is probably some advice I would probably give you. For example, we know that, students achieving their maths GCSEs, is quite challenging. So what I would do is I would work with the maths department. And they normally have some type of calendar where every couple of weeks, they're focusing on one area in maths. So, for example, say in the first 2 weeks, once the courses start, they might be focusing on fractions. So what I would do as a whole sort of college strategy is I would get all these subject teachers to actually use this generator, because as someone who used to teach social media, I'm not a numeracy or maths expert, and I found it quite challenging to embed numeracy and literacy in my lessons. But this generator in particular does a fantastic job. So let's imagine that the maths GCSE departments are teaching fractions for those 2 weeks, and I'm delivering my lesson. So what I would do is I would give the role of a maths expert in teaching and learning, and this is all I would ask. How do I embed fractions on my class? And all I did is just copy and paste the my lesson title. So this is what it's produced, and it's giving me really detailed information on how I can embed that. And what I would do then is obviously not use it all, but I would use the most appropriate things and actually go back to my lesson plan and integrate some of those ideas in there. Okay, so this is definitely something I would be using in order to improve my lesson plan, because now the numeracy is not just general, but it's very contextualized and very timely in terms of what the students are doing, either in their GCSEs or in the other sort of courses. All right, so that's just one example. I could definitely change that and say, how do I embed literacy? How do I do this? And it'll give you a lot of detailed information. So don't forget this Ask an Expert. Do take advantage of it because it is very, very powerful. So that's two. Now, sometimes the lesson plan generator might not meet your needs in terms of the learning activities. So let's see, discuss, explore, explain, find, showcase, introduce, discuss. So we might want to go back now to the the learning activities one, and I might get some ideas and I might have them in my back pocket because some of the activities might not be engaging in the lesson. So I could have activities in my back pocket just prepared for students that finish their tasks, or I could see that they're not very engaged with that task, and it's very easy for me then to change gear in the lesson because I would have prepared these learning activities. So I'm going to go in there. I'm just going to put the same subject that we have, which is this one here, right? I'm going to put as many activities, 15. Obviously, I'm not going to use them. I'm going to click on generate. And then if I find one of these activities could be, very engaging, I might actually take some of these activities and put it in my lesson plan. All right, so this one looks pretty good. So it's giving me ideas that I might take back into my lesson plan and actually say, actually, this is going to be one of my activities that I'm going to do. Right, so this one is build a persona creation, divide students into groups and assign them different businesses, ask each group to create a brand persona for their assigned business, including the tone of voice, values and target audience. Then they should develop social media content that aligns with it. I think that's a pretty good activity. So, it's got group work and it's got all sorts of things. So actually this is, has inspired me. I might take this, go back to my lesson plan and actually start integrating this as the main activity. Now, the next one I want to show you is the multiple choice quiz generator. And it's an incredibly powerful tool, for assessing your students' knowledge. And what it does is it demonstrates responsive teaching. So the use of real-time feedback from this generator showcases a teacher's ability to adapt lessons based on student needs. And that's a really key point in lesson observations. And of course, it engages students actively. So I would definitely be using this as starters, mini plenaries, and then final plenaries. Definitely would be, and it supports differentiation because we do have this complexity slider where we can actually create quizzes that target the different abilities within our class. In addition to this, by the way, I might even go and use the survey creator as a starter. So why would I want to do that? Because the survey creator will give me an idea what my students feel and how much they know about about branding. So I could go to the survey creator, and this could be a really good starter activity. And I can just paste my subject here, right? How businesses can use, okay, so I can say, I can actually probably reword it to get a better survey. So I could say, how much do I know about creating an image or brand for businesses? And this could be a great starter activity. So I'll target any age and I'll put 10 questions. And this could be a great starter activity where we sort of analyze the results as a group, and then it could start a discussion about this. So let's have a look. How familiar are you with the concept of creating an image or brand for a business? So that will give you a really good idea. Some students might have fantastic knowledge and they've created their own business. You can identify that student using this survey through Microsoft Forms. And if someone says very familiar, for example, Sarah said very familiar, we can then ask her what her experience is, and then she can share her knowledge, with the group. All right, there you go. So some really, really good questions that could act as a fantastic starter activity to initiate that conversation and that discussion. And then that way you can find out people's different experiences, because the likelihood is some of these students have probably, done some of these things before. All right, so survey create is really good. But of course, the multiple choice quiz generator is fantastic in checking if learning has occurred in your classroom. So you can use that at the end of the classroom to check if your learning objectives have been achieved. And I would use about 10-15 minutes of the class for students to complete that quiz. And then with the results, you can identify gaps in that knowledge and then use that 15 minutes to plug those gaps and then have discussions about that. All right, so I think that's really, really important. The next one I wanted to show you is the classroom questions generator. This is incredibly important, I think, because when I used to get observed, one of the areas that kept creeping up for me was I never used to use classroom questions based on Bloom's taxonomy, right? So this, classroom questions is exceptionally important, and it can complement, of course, the quiz that you create. So, well-timed questions will allow, the teacher to gauge student understanding in real time, enabling quick adjustments to address misconceptions or knowledge gaps. And you can, engage a range of learners, although the quiz is fantastic for that. But this way you can really target and differentiate your quizzes. So what do I mean by that? Let's have a look. And this is what I would do if I was still teaching and being observed. So I'm going to go to the classroom questions, right? And I might use, the same subject, might even put this whole thing. How can businesses use media websites to support their business aims when created? Let me just try that out. I would put as many questions as possible. Right, I'll put 10 here, and then they're all opened, right? And what I would do is this. I would click on knowledge first, although we're going to update this Bloom's taxonomy because it's the old version. So this is what I would do. I would generate this. Not all the questions are going to be fantastic and perfect. They're not. But this is what we're going to do. You're going to walk into those lesson observations prepared with these classroom questions, okay? So now this is based on the knowledge. What I would do is I would copy this and go to Excel. So I have all my questions prepared well. So this, I would write the domain, the cognitive domain within Bloom's taxonomy, and I would now paste those questions there, right? I would go back, and now I would untick this, go to comprehension, regenerate. So what I'm trying to do is generate questions under each cognitive domain. That way I can differentiate and target some of the lower level learners and some of the more able learners. And all I would do is just go and copy that, go to Excel, write comprehension here. And I'm not saying all the questions will be great. What I would do is choose the best ones. Comprehension, paste that there, and now I've got the comprehensions, and then I would just go on with the other cognitive domains and then just filter out the best questions, and it gives you the suggested answers too. So I'll see which one's there, and if I wanted, and because I knew my students very well, I could even put their names in brackets so I know who I'm going to ask. Right, so that's classroom questions, and that's definitely something I would be doing if I was getting observed. Now, there are other recommended ones. So obviously, if that lesson plan probably will require you to do a PowerPoint, I would be using the PowerPoint presentation to create that PowerPoint. Remember, it's a strong first draft. Then you need to go and amend it, but that's going to save me literally probably 2-3 hours of time using this generator. If you were asking your students to do individual or group presentations, I would definitely be using the rubric generator. And why I would be using that, because I would get the generator to create me a rubric to assess those group presentations, for example. Additionally, what I would do is then I would get the groups to peer assess each other's presentation based on that rubric. And before those group presentations, I would give out the rubric so they know exactly what I'm assessing in that presentation. For example, one of the performance criteria within the rubric itself could be eye contact, something my students never used to use when they used to deliver presentations. Another one could be design or subject knowledge or body language, or did they provide references? So that's an exceptionally powerful generator, especially if you're doing presentations in your lesson plan. Another generator that I would definitely be using is the glossary. So I'd be able to create a glossary just using a few keywords, and that could be a permanent reference point for students. You can even take this further where you can print out the glossary and for it to act like flashcards. So you could print out the glossary, laminate it, get a scissors, cut them into flashcards, and this could be a fantastic plenary exercise where at the end each student gets up and says the term, and whoever is in the class that thinks they know the definition goes and stands up and then articulates that definition. Fantastic, fun and engaging way. I would definitely also complement that probably for extension activities and have a worksheet just in case someone finishes really early. Here's a worksheet, carry on with that. And if, for example, your lesson is based on a YouTube video, I would also highly recommend that you use our YouTube-based content generator to actually create a lesson plan based on that, because it's very student-centered, the output, and it guides the teacher step by step in what to do. And within this generator, it creates a fantastic lesson plan, but it also creates worksheets and quizzes and other activities. So if in your lesson plan you are planning to, show a video, I would definitely recommend that. And if your lesson entails discussion topics, definitely use the discussion topics and then integrate that into your lesson plan. Wow, I amaze myself in terms of the time. I know this was an important subject, but hopefully that would be really useful in actually, sharing some good practice and some of the generators that could help you in reducing the amount of time and energy it takes to create that lesson plan, because I know it's a time consuming and anxious period for many teachers. So please do share some of this knowledge and let your teachers know that TeacherMatic is there to help reduce some of that workload and alleviate some of that anxiety that we all face in teaching and learning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to conclude this presentation, and then I'm going to open it for Q&A. So I am going to stop the recording so you have the ability, the freedom to come up on the mic and ask questions, and I can stay here till about 1:50 to answer any questions that you may have. Just give me a few seconds with that, please.